Thank you for joining us. My name is Courtney.
I'm Diana. Nice to meet you.
And today we're going to be talking about observing Kubernetes policies with Kyverno and VictoriaMetrics. So before we get started, I currently lead community at Nirmata, the creators of the Kyverno project. It's a CNCF graduated project. I'm also a CNCF ambassador, and I sit on the advisory board for the Open UK and State of OpenCon conferences in the UK and across Europe.
Yeah, and I'm Diana. I'm a DevRel engineer at VictoriaMetrics. I'm part of the OpenTelemetry community. I'm also an organizer of Cloud Native Days Romania, that's in Europe. And I'm co-leading the neurodiversity group from the CNCF Merge Forward initiative.
And when we're not talking about tech, we're typically talking about our kids. So aren't you lucky today you get a tech talk instead of a kid talk? So to get started, let's lay the groundwork around what Kyverno actually is, because we need to understand the two tools that we're talking about to then understand why you're going to use them together. So Kyverno is a Kubernetes native policy engine. It lets you define all of your policies, which are basically just rules of the game. When you're playing Uno, it's one of my favorite games to play. Everyone at their own home has their own rules for playing Uno, and that's great until you're playing with somebody else out in the wild that's not from your home, and somebody lays down a pick up 4 and change color card, and somebody lays down another one, and all of a sudden everybody's rules go out the window because in one house you pick up 8 cards and change a color, in the other house you only pick up 4, it all depends. So what policies code is really just how to play your Uno game with your team, right? That's straightforward. So what Kyverno does is let you put those rules into place for your teams that everybody knows what's going on. We also call them golden pathways or guardrails. You can do that in YAML or Common Expression Language. We've adopted Common Expression Language because Kubernetes has also adopted that. So no new languages that you have to learn in order to make your policies and create your rules. It runs directly at admission, so it's part of your admission flow, which means that every API request gets evaluated appropriately, and it decides whether it's going to let it in or not. It also manages your entire life cycle of your resources. So we're not just talking about validation. We have a lot of other ways. We'll talk about those in just a moment. And most importantly, it produces reports and signals that you can actually observe. And so that's where VictoriaMetrics is going to come in today. We have 5 main policy types within Kyverno, so 5 main tools for whatever Uno game you're playing with your family at home. The first one is validation. That's the main use case that people usually get started with in the policy as code space. And what it does is going to block all of your misconfigurations. And as we all know, in the security world, most of your issues come from misconfigurations in the Kubernetes setup. We also have image validating policies. So what image validating policy does is define that all of your images are coming from the libraries that you've decided they need to come from and that they're all signed appropriately. We have mutating policy, which is my favorite. It will mutate your resources according to the different conditions that you have going on so that you have the things that you need to have when you need to have them. We have generating policy, which is also very cool. If you're missing a label, for example, in one of your deployments, it will generate that label of that resource for you. And then we have the cleanup and deleting policy, and that ensures that you don't have any stale resources running in the background, consuming whether it's actual energy and resources itself or causing security issues. So it's not just about enforcement, it's the full control plane for your platform behavior.
Right, so why use Kyverno with VictoriaMetrics? Well, why not, right? Kyverno is actually really cool. It's a graduated CNCF project. I wanted to give it a try, give it a spin, play with it for a very long time. So I was like, okay, why not use it with VictoriaMetrics? VictoriaMetrics is an open source project and offers solutions for monitoring and managing time series data. So you have let's say the older project that is VictoriaMetrics for metrics, but right now you have also Victoria Logs for logs and Victoria Traces. And basically what it is, it's a long-term storage for Prometheus, or you can use it as a drop-in replacement for Prometheus and Graphite in Grafana. It's Kubernetes-compatible, and it also natively supports OpenTelemetry for in metrics, logs, and traces ingestion via OTLP, right? So yeah, we have the repo there. You can check it out later. And yeah, let's see how we can work our magic with Kyverno. Well, at the beginning, obviously, this is a beginning role, right? So a beginning talk in the sense that it's so easy to work with Kyverno that, and so, I didn't have any errors, so that's actually pretty amazing. So yeah, you start with installing the Kubernetes cluster, check the nodes. Right now we have 0 policy enforcement, 0 observability. Then we go and install Kyverno policy engine, and here we'll have actually multiple controllers. You will see installing multiple controllers, like admission controller, which intercepts the API requests, background controller, scans existing resources, and reports controller that generates policy reports. And each one of it will produce telemetry. Right, so because we are freaks and want to always be secure and validate everything, we'll check the Kubernetes pods. We are enforcing, but we are not observing, right? So we go to the next phase. We install the VictoriaMetrics single cluster. You don't need anything like too complex. The single cluster will work very fine for even like more complex operations. And then we will install VictoriaMetrics with Kubernetes, and then this will store basically what Kyverno will emit. We will install the VM agent that is needed for scraping Kubernetes. That's because I had to convert these slides, Google Slides, to Keynote, so there you go. But you get the idea. The screenshot is the most important part here. So the VM agent is what is a VM agent? It's a lightweight agent that helps you collect metrics from various sources, relabel and filter the collected metrics and store them in VictoriaMetrics or any other storage system via the Prometheus remote write protocol. And in this case, obviously, we're using to scrape metrics from Kyverno, and we'll send them to VictoriaMetrics. Important here, so we can also check that the script configuration to confirm that the actual VM agent is collecting the metrics and that the remote write is successfully sending them to VictoriaMetrics. So you want to always be sure, and these steps are there to make it clear. Right. You can check also that the targets are up and the scripts total are increasing, something really important. Because, obviously, if you're not getting metrics, it will be pretty hard to trust the policies because, everything is in a sequential order. What else?
So to get started, the first thing we're going to do is deploy 2 apps. And as I was talking about earlier, we're moms, and we were just talking about good kids and bad kids, and we believe they're all good kids, but sometimes they just need the right rules to get them there. And so in this case, we're going to deploy 2 apps. We've got a bad app, and that's the one that we're going to deploy first. This is a very real-world scenario that you're going to see here. So most organizations struggle with missing metadata. They struggle with inconsistent labeling. They struggle with ownership tracking. All of these things are very common, especially that's what platform teams most of the time are working to combat. And this directly impacts not just your observability, but it also impacts your cost allocation, your workloads and who's doing what, incident response times. And so we're going to look at how different policies are going to be able to help you manage those things. Now, we're also going to deploy the good app. In this case, it's properly structured. You can see this one is following the same best practices. It's the same cluster, but it's getting a different behavior. And that's what we use observability for, is to figure out why those things happen. They happen to all of us. So now the fun part is going to be using some policies in order to control that behavior and then observe why those changes have actually happened.
Then you can just pour forward VictoriaMetrics, and you can actually view the metrics via the VictoriaMetrics user interface. You can see there like the scrape targets in targets and a bunch of other things. Then obviously we can pour forward Kyverno. I'll let you take a photo. And we can start actually using the policy, and we'll take it step by step. So we'll start with the validating policy and apply it.
Yep. So we're going to look at C&C. We're going to put this validating policy into our bad app. We create this validating policy to enforce labels. And you can see there we're going to require a handful of labels. And then if there's a missing label, so if it's missing the observability label app or environment or team, whoever's deploying that is going to get that message so that they now have actionable feedback, which is one of the cool things about Kyverno is at admission when something's not up to policy or not playing by the rules, somebody gets actionable feedback in order to be able to change that. Remember, this is running at admission times. So that means that the request is going to be intercepted before it gets put into production. And this is super powerful because it's literally going to help you prevent resource drift. It's going to eliminate any kind of manual review because the policy just reviews it for you, so your platform team doesn't get stuck having to do all of those manual reviews to get it done. And then it's going to ensure that you have consistency across teams because that policy is then going to be deployed across all of your apps, so they're all going to be working correctly. We also are going to introduce the mutating policy. This is one of my all-time favorite policies once I figured it out. Also, when you start with policies, please start with them in the audit mode and then put them into enable mode, because when you're mutating things, you might mutate something by accident. But we're going to introduce the mutating policy also to just automatically add the labels. So it will mutate that resource for you. So if you don't want to just validate it, you can mutate that policy. It's going to reduce your developer friction. And instead of blocking everything, we're going to guide the developers toward compliance by just having that policy mutate things for them. This is huge for adoption because it's not super strict validation. It doesn't make people have to change context all the time and know all of the rules. It will just kind of set things up for them. That reduces a huge amount of frustration. It reduces burnout from your team. It makes people not have to do different workarounds. It reduces shadow practices a huge amount because they're just already built in and doing it. It's a super developer-friendly platform.
Right, and right now, yeah, we will go ahead and test the policies. We will do that all the time. The validating policy acts correctly and it blocks the mutating policy there. So we said we have a validation error message that says missing observability label. So yeah, this is what it does.
Yep, and the key insight here is that without observability, we know it failed, right? And that's super important. But it's not just the failure that we're worried about. We also want to know how often does this happen? Which teams are affected by these failures, whether it's improving over time or not. And so that's the whole point of observing your policies, is to be able to answer those questions to then reduce friction in the places that it needs to be reduced, because now you know where the friction point is on those different applications. So without telemetry, we only see the failure, but we don't actually see the pattern that's happening in order to be able to change the pattern and get a better result.
Yeah, so we could fix that by improving the mutating policy, right? Apply it and check the Kubernetes pods. This is how you get out of this situation. And we're going to see right now how to create the generating policy and apply it.
Yep, so once we've done all of that, we're going to create a generating policy. This is actually going to just automatically generate your resource. So for example, you can generate a config map, you can generate security defaults, you can generate observability configs, or you can just generate a label. This enforces your golden path. It makes it happen without actually having to be involved. And we hear that all the time from platform engineers that start using policy. I was a bottleneck before, and I'm not anymore. Instead of just telling your teams what to do, you initially do it for them by putting in a policy that's going to make sure that it's already the path that they're going on.
Right, so yeah, we go ahead and test and validate the policy. What we see here is that Kyverno automatically intercepts the requests, applies the generate policy, creates demo configuration inside the namespace. So what it means, yeah, the generate policy is working perfectly. So whenever a new namespace is created, Kyverno automatically injects a config map. So there is no need for a manual step here. Yeah, and then we could check the full configuration in Kubernetes. If you're like me, I always like to check stuff. So yeah, an extra validation step. And then we go ahead to the image validation policy. Yay.
So we're slowly getting this bad app up to a good app, and one of the next steps is going to be adding in that image validation policy. So this is super important for your overall supply chain security stance. Also, a lot of larger orgs have to deal with compliance requirements, and this will do a lot of that for you. Observability is going to tell us on this policy how many images are denied. You now know whether your teams are aware where they should be pulling those images from, if the libraries have been defined well enough or not, whether teams are improving or whether they're continuing to do whatever they feel like, and what you need to do in order to be able to communicate with them better. And it gives you measurable patterns over time to then be able to fix them.
Right, so we'll test the policy, it passed, so all good. But we test it again and see that it's not passed because we have the image validating policy that acts correctly with the error message, okay, only images from Docker Hub library are allowed. So yeah, we are enforcing right now the supply chain security by only allowing trusted container images. So yeah, this is why it's important for these events to be tracked. And we are the last policy here.
And the last policy is the deleting policy. So now we've gotten validation and people know what labels are supposed to be running. They're pulling their images from where they're supposed to be pulling them. All of those things are starting to work. When something's not right, we either generate that resource for them or we mutate it according to the conditions we've defined. But now, turns out, there are all of these random things that you create to get this deployment out there that you either forget about and they're still running in the background, and that creates security issues, or just a massive usage of resources that you're not even aware because you don't need these resources anymore. So we add in the deleting policy to clean that up for you. It basically runs like a cron job. You set it up, you define the types of things that are running in that background that you know don't really need to be there after a period of time that people forget about, and it will automatically go through and clean that up. And slowly we start turning this into a good app.
Right, so let's test it because we don't trust what we are saying. So we create a deployment, then we try to delete the deployment. So yeah, the delete policy acts here correctly and stops the deployment from being deleted. And you get, block protects deployments here. Deletion of deployments is not allowed in this demo. But we want to actually explore everything via a very famous user interface frontend, which is called Grafana. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure you're paying attention. Okay, so yeah, what can you do with Grafana, open source? Well, you can install it, and then you could open it. You could add the Prometheus data source for VictoriaMetrics. Obviously, you can use Prometheus, but right now this talk is about VictoriaMetrics. We will see that you can operate with metrics QL language, query language. That's a superset of PromQL, has more advanced features on top of it. So yeah, and the important are the screenshots. You'll get this part with the server. Always check whatever the name is, because you'll get populated in Grafana that you'll have a specific server name, but it might not be the same with what you have internally, so always check that. Yeah. And then, yeah, use the correct name for the Prometheus server there. And then we could go ahead and create a dashboard using all of our policies. And I'll explain each query what it does. Kyverno admission request total shows how many times Kyverno evaluated Kubernetes requests, like every create, update, or delete. Then the request allowed true will give us how many requests passed, policies allowed changes. The request allowed false, how many requests were blocked or rejected by policies. And some by resource kind will break results done by object type, like pod or deployment. And we'll see what is being most affected by policies. Then we'll have this nice Grafana dashboard. We can visualize everything with a query that's called Kyverno admission request total, and we can break them down by policy type, resource, allowed versus denied. So here is where we add the query and the panel for mutating policy activity in Grafana. This is how it looked like when we start seeing the activity. And yeah, we can see exactly what we are seeing.
Yeah, and this is really where things start to get a lot more powerful for people, is having this visibility. So in this one, you can see the mutation activity over a period of time. Now we can answer the questions that we're asking, like, are policies being triggered correctly? Are developers complying with them as time goes on, or are you continuing to see the same failures? And that might be just a simple matter of they need to understand and have more context around why they need to set things up a certain way. Or as the platform team, you need to have more context to understand where the friction point is so you can fix that for them. Also, are you blocking too many things? This happens a lot. You get too strict with what's going on and you restrict the actual capacity of your team. So you can then analyze those friction points and figure out what's going on. You can also start to see if there's a spike in denied requests, understand why that's happening. You can study if there's a drop in denied requests and understand why to then implement that with other teams, because oftentimes platform teams are servicing a bunch of different end users, right? This turns policy into a measurable system, not something that you're just putting there to get a handful of things done, but it's a measurable system, and it tells us how often we're actually fixing configurations automatically and where we're not fixing them, what those friction points are, so that we can start doing a better job.
Cool. So let's add a query in the panel for the generating policy activity in Grafana. And we will get this type of panel, which shows how often resources are being created by the policy. And yeah, it's a direct signal of platform automation. We could also add a query and panel for image validation policy, and we have this panel. And what we can see here exactly.
Yep, and this one is a super important view because we can see now how many requests are being allowed. We can see how many are being denied, and that shows us the policy is immediately having an impact, so we can control different destructive actions as well as allow other things that are functioning better for one team and see if that replicates in another. So it's preventing any type of accidental or unauthorized decision making on critical workloads, but at the same time enabling your developers to do what they need to do.
Right, and next we can add the query in the panel for the delete policy. And finally, we get the whole thing for the 5 Kyverno policies.
Yep, and there we can see all of our 5 policies. We now have 2 good apps instead of 1 bad app and 1 good one. We've got 2 good apps. They're all functioning under the same type of rules. And for teams today, that goes from not just writing policies and deploying them and then stopping there. It turns into, with observability, you're now writing your policies, but you know that they're being effective. You know what impact they're having. You know the adoption of those practices, instead of just doing blind enforcement on things. And then you're identifying those friction points over a period of time to then be able to add additional policies that are going to provide value for your team and your end user and your dev experience, or reduce certain things in order to empower your team. And that turns this into an actual feedback loop for what's going on. It makes it much easier to produce a product that your team is going to be more willing to adopt because they have the guardrails and the understanding and the rules of how the game is supposed to be played in a much more efficient way. And it makes your platform much more capable at the end of the day of producing what you need it to produce.
Right, so yeah, right now we have the full picture with all this dashboard, well, with all these queries and the dashboards. And what we can answer for our teams: are the policies being triggered? Are the teams improving? Are we blocking too much? And we get the general sense of the overall workflow and delivery process, so this is really cool. So for the fans of Grafana, you could do that with Grafana, but obviously you could go to the, let's say, more native VictoriaMetrics user interface, where you could also see the the Kyverno metrics there. So what you can see is not really that big, but it's here I highlighted the query that's Kyverno admission request total, because it has here the request counts and the last request. So basically it's a query that I often use it. So normally you'll see there when it shows up in this panel. If you don't use something, it will automatically comes up with 0. And then if it's an expensive metric that comes on top and you really don't query it, then maybe it's an opportunity for it to drop. Obviously, you don't want expensive metrics because obviously it will drive the cost, and yeah, it's basically causing latency. Here in the VictoriaMetrics user interface, you can see a unique feature called Cardinality Explorer, which has a bunch of cool features there. So it provides cardinality analysis to understand how many unique time series exist. So the same it goes for DevOps or SREs or any developer who is using that to understand what metrics are the most expensive, how you can cut down, how you can visualize the metrics that provoke latency or take too long to query, any issues around that. Also, you could see the problems that have a direct impact on the cost, the performance, or the quality of your observability. So pretty much here, this another panel that didn't fit in the screenshot. That's the label with the highest number of unique values, but you get in the same VictoriaMetrics user interface other cool features like you can see top queries, active queries, query analyzer, trace analyzer with expressions playgrounds, metric relay debugger, downsampling filters debugger, or retention filters debugger. So anyway, it's pretty cool for troubleshooting and doing a bunch of techie stuff around it. So this is the GitHub repo where we put all the information, like walks through all the examples that you've seen, so you could try it yourself. That's something that you could do.
And there is a full video demo. It's just we had to change our slide template, and so it didn't show up there. But if you scan the repo, you will get a full walkthrough of everything that we've done here and all of the resources to be able to do it, as well as a video of what it will look like when you get done.
I think
this is it. Oh, that is the. Oh, maybe it came up. It was on a different slide.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if it will work.
If not, we can.
See, promise. There is a video there.
Yeah, it's a video. But anyway, we didn't finish yet, so.
Yep, and that brings us to the summary of things. So, summarizing it all up, we've got 5 different policy types. You're going to validate to block your misconfigurations. You're going to mutate things to fix everything automatically. You're going to generate the resources that your dev team might have forgotten to put in. You're going to validate all of your images because that is beyond important in the era of AI, and then you're going to delete anything extra that's there. And you're going to pool all of that together by then observing, not just enforcing, but then observing those different signals for your platform so that you have better behavior over time by identifying those patterns and friction points so that you can then use those insights to make not just a better developer experience, but a far more productive experience for your team and your applications across the board. So if you take anything away from this, don't just write policies, even though I am a huge policy lover. Don't just write them, observe them, measure them, improve on them, because teams that actually get the best metrics and the best performance out of everything are the ones that aren't just implementing the policies, but they are understanding where the friction points are so that they can then do something about that.
Yeah, so you have the resources here that are pretty useful, like I said. So you have the GitHub repo where you have all the demo there. So the Kyverno policies, the VictoriaMetrics documentation, the playgrounds for VictoriaMetrics logs and traces, which has the data, and you can play around and understand other parts of the open source, this open source ecosystem, and also the play Grafana, and you have many, many dashboards there. How you can get in touch with the Kyverno community on the CNCF Slack channel, or with VictoriaMetrics community via the public Slack channel, so we can ask any questions you have. We are available. Yeah, and not the least, because we are here at the Cloud Native Days event, I want to, I'm, like I said at the beginning, I'm leading the neurodiversity working group, which is part of the bigger initiative Merge Forward. What is Merge Forward is an initiative that supports diverse communities, and we share networks for learning, mentorship, friendship, collaborative ideas exchange. We have 7 working groups, and definitely there is a place for you. And we need more allies. We need more people to start collaborating with us. So this is a great idea. You can find us online via the CNCF Slack channel, and hopefully we will be able to get in touch. You can get a photo with us, Mauricio. Yep, got it. Perfect. Just checking. And yeah, I know we don't have time for questions, but just please scan this, contact us. No, you didn't. Okay. So yeah, merge forward, yay, cool. So we have a photo, yeah, it exists, nice.
It exists, we did.
Yeah, I mean,
merge forward.
Exactly, so we did do that. Cool, so yeah, like I said, find us afterwards. We have cool stickers, Kyverno, VictoriaMetrics, there you go. Stickers for everybody, and thank you for your time and your patience.
Yep, thank you.